Hi y'all, Stephanie here with Minimalist Mom Life. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Thanks for clicking on this video. So as you can tell by the title, I'm going to talk about hospitality, and I'm going to actually be answering questions that I got in a comment from my last video on hospitality. And then if I don't ramble on too long, I'm going to talk about another aspect of hospitality that someone has asked me to do, and I wanted to do in the last video, but it didn't work out. Okay, so the 4 questions that I'm going to make sure I get to today on hospitality are, do we put anything away? Are any rooms like closed off when we have people over? How do we prepare a house? And do we give rules to other children? How do we work with that with having so many kids coming over all the time? So hopefully I can get through those questions. Question number 1, are there any rooms that we close off when we practice hospitality? And when I talk about practicing hospitality, I'm talking about everything from the fact that the kids have friends to the house on an almost daily basis to having Friendsgiving of 50 people at our home. So the category is quite broad. So we practice a type of hospitality that is people just popping over. If you didn't know, my husband's a pastor, so we're a pastor's family, and we live in a parsonage. And if you're not familiar with that, it is a home owned by the church for the use of whoever is the pastor at the time. And so when we moved into this parsonage, and we've been here 5.5 years, and it's our first time living in a parsonage. But when we moved in, people in the church and even in the community knew where our house was even before we knew some of those people. And so my husband does have an office at the church where he goes to work, but sometimes people still come here looking for him, or they come to the house on a spur of the moment whim to talk to me about something, or they're in the neighborhood, or they want to drop off a treat to the kids, or so on. So we have that type of hospitality where it's not necessarily planned, or we're not given a heads up. And then we have hospitality where the kids have friends over on a very regular basis. And I would say all of their childhood, and my oldest is about to be 10. I have 5, 10 ages down to 3. We have been the house where most of their friends congregate. I am an extrovert and I enjoy people, and I don't mind a lot of kid noise for the most part. And so we tend to be the house where there are a lot of children, and I also have 3 of my boys were all born within 22 months. So they're kind of a little pack of kids that I think attracts other children to come, because it's like add 1 kid and you already have a party, right? So we have that type of hospitality, and then we do enjoy having people from our church and our friends and our community over for dinner. For me personally, that has been the easiest and best way for me to make friends, and for me even just to get to know people, because with so many children, and especially when they were younger, when you're out at a social function or you're at church, it can be hard to get to engage in conversations because you're kind of trying to manage your kids all the time. It's much easier for me in my own home. So anyways, the types of hospitality there. Also to add, I will say, I feel like God uses everything in your life for His glory and your good. And we were foster parents for about 8 years, and through being foster parents, we had to be ready to have people over, because you could have surprise visits from caseworkers or from child care licensing coming to make sure that your home had all of the things that it needed to have, as well as scheduled visits from the county social workers. If you have a private agency, that social worker, therapist for the child, etc. I had a lot of people coming into the home as I was raising my children when they were super little. And so I got very used to the idea that by 8:30 in the morning, we might be having someone over, whether it was planned or not. And so I think my home, God used that to really work in me, that my home was my home, and it was a place to be comfortable for me and my family, but it was also definitely an avenue of ministry, and one that was going to be utilized. Okay, so I don't even know if I got to the first question when I went on that whole ramble about hospitality, but I feel like it's helpful when someone is talking about a topic like this to kind of get who they are, so you're getting why my perspective might be the way it is, and it might not be yours, and that's okay. Do we close off any rooms in our house? No. So we live in a 1,200 square foot house. It has 3 bedrooms. I have 3 boys in 1 room. My daughter and then my youngest boy share a room, and then obviously my husband and I. And it's an adorable little house. You can check out our house tour if you want. But we don't close off any rooms, and we didn't in our last house either. I keep the house clean enough that it's okay for me. It's okay to me if people see in all the rooms. My kids keep their toys in their rooms, so when kids want to play toys, if they're not playing outside, they're going to be in those bedrooms playing. And actually our master bedroom that you're sitting on, my master bed right now, has obviously our queen bed, and that is a popular surface for my children and their friends when they want to play games like Settlers of Catan or Monopoly or Payday, games that take a longer amount of time and need to be set up over a space, and they don't want the toddler walking over it on the living room floor. There's really not the floor space in the boys' bedroom, the 3 boys' bedroom, to set up a game, or really on their little twin beds. And the dining room table, if we're practicing hospitality, is often used as a buffet table, or it's getting set for dinner, or they would use that table. But so no, we definitely don't close off any rooms. We don't have the need to. We've never had an issue so far, and so no rooms are closed off. Do we put things away was one of the questions when we have people over. So when my boys were younger, there was definitely a time that we were having families over and their Legos were getting destroyed by younger children, and that was not something that they enjoyed. So they know to put things away like that if we're having a larger party where there's gonna be little kids. But otherwise, I mean, that's not something that I'm like, do you need anything to be put away? That's kind of on all of them at this point. If there's something they don't want to share or they want to make sure it doesn't get ruined, then they know they can give it to me and I'll help them put it away, or they can put it like at the top of their closet. But by and large, they don't really do that so much anymore. Again, we've been foster parents, we're not now, but we were for a long time, and we've practiced hospitality for a long time, and I babysit. And so I feel like my kids are pretty used to sharing. Not perfect at it by any means, but they're pretty used to the idea that other kids touch their stuff and play with their stuff, and it's not a super big sticking point for them. Okay, then the next question was things that we do to prepare our home for hospitality. So I touched on this before when I mentioned that I have kind of, since becoming a stay-at-home mom 10 years ago, it has kind of been the norm for us to know that people are going to come over. So to me, my preparation for spontaneous hospitality is just my usual morning routine of getting myself together and the basic housekeeping that I do every morning. And so if you pop over, I'm not going to feel flustered over those things. So I really don't do more than that. Like if I know we're having a family over for dinner, then the things that I'm going to check before they come over in the evening that are done is I would like the rug in the living room to be vacuumed, like the floors to be clean. I want my bathrooms to be cleaned. Even if they were that morning, I'm going to check that they still are. And the litter box is clean. So we have 2 cats. The litter box gets cleaned every morning, but if we're having people over at 6 o'clock, I'm going to make sure that's not smelling. Does the trash need to go out? And that's really it. Otherwise, it's just going to be making sure I'm making something yummy to share with them, and that's it. Now, if it's a larger party where we're needing to utilize the backyard in order for everybody to sit, because like I said, we have a 1,200 square foot house. Our dining room is in our kitchen. In fact, our table, in order for a whole family to sit in it, you have to pull it out and then utilize the benches. And if it's just a few people, they can sit there with us. But if it's more than that, then we set up tables in our backyard. We have a picnic table out there. So a lot of times, depending on the amount of people, the kids just go sit on the picnic table outside, and just outside, and the adults sit at the table. Or if it's a bigger party, like a birthday party for someone in the church, or Friendsgiving, things like that, then we will borrow tables from the church, like 6-foot tables and folding chairs, and we just make a big long line of tables. And we do live in Northern California, and so it does get cold. It gets very hot for a long time, but it's still, it's not a crazy hard climate. Like we're not in the Northeast or any area like that where it's, 30 below at any point. So we can eat outside pretty much year round. At Friendsgiving, we actually even have a portable plug-in light heater that friends of ours gave us after the first year they came to Friendsgiving, and it was a little bit chilly outside. So we have one of those as well for eating outside if we need it. But that takes a little bit more setup than if we're gonna have a bigger party. But I don't do any crazy deep cleaning. I'm not worried about my baseboards if you come over, or my medicine cabinet any more than I would be for myself on a regular basis. I definitely think that hospitality is not just about preparing your heart and your home for those that don't live in your home that come to visit, but also treating your home as a place that you want to feel comforting and welcoming to your very own family and even to yourself. So that goes into, for me, keeping a neat and tidy house and keeping it clutter-free is really helpful for me to feel those things. So that's that question. The next one was, rules for other children. So how do I go about having so many kids over on a regular basis? Do I give them rules for our house? Yes and no. I don't, when children come in, I'm not, or with their families or without, like if they're just coming over to play, I'm not like, here's the rules for our house. Like, not at all. My biggest thing with anybody coming to my house, whether it's the first time I've met you or you've been here 100 times and you bring your laundry when you come, I want you to feel at home. I want you to feel welcome. I want you to feel loved, and I want you to feel at home where you know where the glasses are to get your own water, or I can get it for you, but certainly you're welcome to get it yourself. And I want you to know that you can take fruit out of the fruit table, you can take food out of the fridge, and we have a rule in our family that if you're around the time of dinner, you're always welcome to stay for dinner. So our kids know they can always invite their friends to stay for dinner, and I will make extra things and throw in more sides if I need to stretch stuff, but I want people to feel at home in my house. So I do not give them a list of rules, and that's not been an issue. Like, I've not had children or adults or people that come over and are really, disrespectful or crossing boundaries of things that we wouldn't want done. The only things that I've had to really ever say, I would say, where this is a yes part, is if I have to, I don't allow cussing in my home. And so if there is a child that is saying a cuss word, then I'll just say, hey honey, we don't talk like that in this house, thank you. And it's not been an issue. That child still comes back, but they just know that, hey, in this house, we're not gonna do that. And my kids will tell kids that too. So it's not just mom, but certainly if I hear something like that, I can correct it. And then we don't have video games in this house. We don't do internet access with our children. And so if it's a child that comes over with a phone that they are on, not just like a phone in their pocket for telling mom when they're coming home, it doesn't do other things, but if they are like trying to play games on a phone or look up funny videos or something, then I'll say, hey, let's put that on the counter or put that up. We're not going to do that at our house or in my car or whatever the thing is. And again, that's really not been, I've never had a child have an issue with that. So it's not been an ongoing thing. I think kids get that different people's houses, different rules, but I certainly don't, like, at the dinner table, I'm going to correct my kids' table manners, but I'm not going to correct anybody else's child because that's between them and their parent. So I think that's pretty much it. And I don't I know some of y'all are so grossed out by this, but we don't have a you have to take off your shoes policy. Now, by and large, like my children do, because the shoe basket is by the back door if they're really coming in to stay and not just grabbing something, but I don't make anybody take off their shoes. Whatever they're comfortable with is fine with me. So I hope that answers all of those questions. The only other thing I wanted to mention is someone mentioned wanting to practice hospitality but having a smaller home and feeling like that is limiting. And I just want to say from my personal experience, when Jason and I first got married, our apartment was tiny. It was maybe, I should look it up. It was like maybe 400 square feet or something. It was very small, also very, very, very inexpensive. And we had one little table that really fit two people, but we could put two other chairs around it. And we had over almost every single couple, if not every single couple, that went to church with us, and even families. And we would borrow a card table and attach that to that in this little tiny apartment where you're really sitting in the living room and have people over. Or you'd sit with these older couples, the four of us are on this little tiny table as newlyweds, and we would get some of the best marriage advice and some of the best loving relationships from people that were so understanding and wonderful towards us. I have to share this one memory, and this sweet lady has since gone on to heaven, but we had a couple over, and we're brand new to that state, and my husband's a youth pastor, and we're trying to get to know everybody this way, and it's way less expensive to do it that way than trying to go out to dinner with people, and it's way more intimate, and you can have better conversations. And I had made a chili that evening, and when she was eating her chili, she found one of my strands of hair. And again, I know some of y'all are so grossed out by that, and she was so incredibly gracious and genuinely gracious. She pulled the hair out of her chili, and she's like, oh, a hair, and just put it to the side. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And she just continued eating her chili and having a great conversation and wanting to look at our wedding photos. And I just loved, I felt so bad, but I just loved that expression of graciousness towards me as a host. And I think it even just stood out in my mind as like, we don't need to be perfect, and we won't be anyway, even if we wanted to be perfect for our guests. And things are going to happen, and people can still love us just the way we're going to love them and their imperfections as well. So anyways, my point to the thing about the apartment, and even our house now, like we have never had this big house that people say is great for entertaining, right? But I have found that people will sit on your couches. They will sit, if their knees are fine, on the ground with their plate of food to come to game night. Like, you do not have to have a setup where everybody can sit around this round table and see each other and there's candlelight. You do not have to have a gourmet meal. You don't even have to make everything if you really are just better with doing a potluck style theme nights or something. People just want to be loved and they want to get to know you, and homes are often easier for other people, especially I feel like if you have a smaller, not intimidating home where there's not 1,000 places for their children to go and there's not breakable things. People just want to be with you and they want to get to know you, and that is the house that you live in. So going back to hospitality being an expression of who you actually are, well, that is actually your house. You don't live in a mansion or in a place that has a living room and a den and a formal dining room for hospitality. If you have a smaller house, utilize that smaller house. And maybe you don't do massive parties. Maybe you do, you know, every Thursday night we have a different family over instead of having them over all at once, which if you're getting to know people is a better way anyways, because the majority of people that I've gotten to know, you get to know them so much better on a one-on-one or just two families at a time than you do when you invite them to a party at your house. You may still hardly get to actually interact with them. So do not allow a smaller home to keep you from practicing hospitality. If you're worried your guests won't be comfortable, invite them anyway. Do your best, and if they're not comfortable, they won't come back. But don't allow that to, don't reject yourself over that. If they're going to reject you over that, okay, but don't you do it for them. Go ahead and invite them and open up your home. Again, I found hospitality to be the biggest blessing to us too. It's not just about blessing other people. Certainly, I hope that's the motivation when you're doing it and not to show off. But I have found it one of the best ways to cultivate and create relationships. So I encourage you to practice it. And if you have more questions or thoughts on what I've shared, then leave them in the comments down below, and I'll talk to you later.